This week we're beginning a new chapter in the cycle of finishing the Torah in the course of 1 year. And we started in the beginning 3 weeks ago. And now we're learning about the story of Abraham. And last week, which began basically 2 weeks ago, at the end of Noach, it talked about the birth of Abraham. And now Abraham left Ur Kasdim and he went to Haran. And last week we learned about how God told him to leave Haran also, to go to the land of Israel. And Abraham went to the land of Israel and there was nothing to eat there and they had to go down. He went with his wife, of course, and then they went down to Egypt, and Sarah was taken prisoner. And there was a big war that Abraham had to fight in order to rescue his nephew, Lot. And after that, God told Abraham to circumcise himself. And that's where last week's Torah portion ended. This week's Torah portion ends immediately after that. So let's just read the text and then we'll go back a little bit and start to understand. This week it starts off as Abraham is sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. And he's recovering from his circumcision. It's the third day, the most painful day. But he can't refrain from sitting out in the entrance of his tent because he wants to take guests in. He loves guests. And God made a miracle that there wouldn't be any guests. We'll see what it means, why the sun was so hot. It says in the heat of the day he was sitting. And the angels come and announce that he's going to have a child, Yitzchak. And they tell Sarah that Abraham is going to have a son, and this son is going to be his inheritor. And then after that, God tells Abraham that he's going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Amorah. It was really sort of like a metropolis over there. It was several cities together, and they were all big sinners, and God was going to destroy them. And Abraham makes this big argument with God. Maybe don't kill everybody. Maybe there's 50 righteous people, maybe 45, maybe 40, maybe 30, maybe 20, etc. We're going to see. We'll see. I don't know if we'll get to that today. Probably not, but at least we'll get to the beginning. Let's just do the first few sentences. Ready? Yes. Here we go. Vayera elav Hashem. That God appeared to him. To who? Strangely, it doesn't say Abraham. Also, strangely, usually it says Vayera Hashem El Avram, but it doesn't. It says that he appeared to him. The first he is implying this is God, and to him is Abraham. So he appeared to Abraham. Who appeared to him? God. That's Hebrew grammar. God appeared to Abraham. The Elonei Mamre, in this place called Elonei Mamre. Who's Elonei Mamre? We'll see. And Abraham, Yoshev Pesach HaOel, is sitting at the entrance of his tent, Kechom Hayom, in the middle of the day. We'll just go through first a few of the sentences and then we'll go back. A lot of explanations here. We're going to do a lot of them. Abraham looked up his eyes. He lifted up his eyes and he saw him. Now God is visiting Abraham, right? So Abraham lifts up his eyes and he sees 3 people that are standing near him. And he got up, he left God's presence, and he ran to meet these 3 people. Mipetach oil, from the opening of the tent. And he bowed down to them, to the ground. Vayomer. And he said, Adonai, my masters. He's not speaking to God, he's speaking to these angels. If please, I find favor in your eyes, don't leave, don't keep going. Abraham is requesting the guests should come in. He wants the guests. It says here we learn that guests are more important than the presence of God. Abraham leaves God's presence and he runs to these guests. Okay. Says, don't turn away from your servant. Now, Abraham is referring to himself. Take a little bit of water, wash your feet, and rest over here under this tree. He's speaking to these three angels. He doesn't know they're angels. He thinks that they're people. Take a little bit of bread, satisfy your hearts, and after, then you can go, because ki alken avartem al avdechem. Because therefore, I want you, only this way I want you to pass over in front of me. I want to be to serve you, to be your servant. And they said, okay, we'll do what you asked. And Abraham ran back to his tent to Sarah, and he said, hurry, take 3 units of, flour, and knead it, K-N-E-A-D, and make cakes. And then Abraham ran to his cattle, and he took one of them, was really good, and he slaughtered it and he gave it to the boy. We'll see who the boy is. And he ran to do it, to prepare it. And he took milk and butter and the animal that he made, and he put it in front of them, and he stood over them, and they ate. People ask, how can it be? It says Abraham did the whole Torah before it was given. So I said, well, first of all, he gave them the milk, and then he waited a couple minutes, and then he gave them the meat. And they said, where is Sarah, your wife? And he says, she's in the tent. And they said, next year we're going to come back, and your wife is going to have a son. And Sarah listened. She's right after her. And she heard. Now a little sort of a parenthetical statement. Abram and Sarah were old. We already know they were old. Abraham was 100 years old, and Sarah, well, he was 99 years old, I'm sorry. And Sarah was 89. And Boim v'yamim, and they were getting up in years. And Sarah did not have no longer was in the way of women. She was not menstruating. She had no. And Sarah laughed inside of herself, and she said, after I have already become withered away, I'm going to be young again. And also my husband is also old. And God said to Abram, why did Sarah laugh? God now is speaking. Why did Sarah laugh? Can I give birth? Is anything amazing for God? Next year I'm going to come back and Sarah's going to have a son. Okay, that's the whole reading for the first day. Let's do a little bit of the commentary here. Go back to the beginning. Okay, so strange scene over here. We have this altogether only 5, I want to call it characters in this whole thing. There's Abraham, there's God, there's the 3 visitors, and Avram's wife. Then there's also the Na'ar, the boy that Abraham gives it to. We'll talk about that. That's probably Eliezer. We'll talk about this. Let's go back to a couple of the explanations. We're going to see some beautiful commentary over here. Vayera Elav Hashem. God appeared to him, Elonei Mamre. And Abraham was sitting at the opening of his tent in the heat of the day. Remember, that's how we start off. We're going back now to the beginning. Rashi. Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. God appeared to him, Vayera Elav Hashem. God appeared, Levaker et HaCholeh. Why did he appear to him? To visit the sick person. Omer Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina, Rabbi Chanina Bar Chanina said it was the 3rd day of Abraham's circumcision. And God came, and he was coming to just ask, how are you? Where is this place, Elonei Mamre? What's this Elonei Mamre? Where did this come from? Who, Mamre, was the person who gave him the advice on the Milah. He gave him, what type of advice did he give him? We're going to see that there's a beautiful Sifrono talks about this. Therefore, God revealed to Abraham in this portion, in this land, which is called on Mamre's name. What was Abraham doing? He was sitting in the heat of the day. He was sitting, says Yoshev. It should have a vav over here. Yoshev. Why didn't it have a vav? It's written without a vav. Yoshev, because he bakesh lamod, bikesh lamod. He wanted to stand up for God. God said, Shav ani amod. You sit down, and I'll stand up. God's presence. Va'ata siman levanecha. You will be a sign for your children. Sha'atir ani lihityatzeh ba'arat hadayanim. I will appear every time judges, Jewish judges, God-fearing Jewish judges sit and make a court case. I will stand with the judges, v'hem yoshvim, and they sit. Shneimar Elohim nitzav ba'aras el. Like it says, God stands in the congregation of God. The congregation is talking about the judges that sit and judge. That's written in Psalms. Petach Oel, why Petach Oel? The road to see, Im Yesh Oiver V'Shav. Abraham sat in the entrance of his tent to see if maybe there were people that would pass by. And he would take them into his house. But it was the heat of the day, says Rashi. Why does it have to tell us that the day was hot? It says God took the sun out of its sheath. The sun, the atmosphere, whatever, that hides over the sun, it was so blazing hot that nobody would want to walk in the road. Well, but when God saw that Abraham was more pained by the fact that there were no guests because it was so hot, and also he saw that Abraham was sitting in the very heat that God wanted to prevent other people walking in. Nevertheless, Abraham sat there. So God brought the angels to him, in the form of men, so that Abraham would have guests. He saw how much pain that Abraham had that he didn't have guests. This we have to give the credit. I mean, there are people like that also, but this we have to give credit to Abraham's wife, because taking guests, the man never minds if there's guests. You can have all sorts of very strange, even destructive people come in. The man of the house, he doesn't care. You know, they make a little bit of trouble. It's no big deal. But the wife, she cares. You bring all sorts of abnormal people into your house, it wrecks your wife's Shabbos. It wrecks the whole day, the whole year, right? You bring a person, the wife takes care of the house, and all of a sudden you bring some, undesirable people in. This is not good. So the credit here goes to Abraham. Of course, he wanted the guests to come, but Sarah wanted the guests to come no less than Abraham did. Just that she didn't have to suffer for it. But the fact that she allowed it is an amazing feat. Okay, let's go and look at some of these commentaries. Let's go. Here we go. First of all, we did Rashi. Look, Bala Turim. God vayera love. God appeared to him. Samach Nimlo. This is right after Abraham was circumcised. That's the previous portion we read last week. Is it Melamed? Comes out Shenira Lo that God. This we learn that God appeared to Abraham because of the circumcision. Another opinion, Namolo Ito, that God, so to speak, was circumcised with him. Abraham circumcised himself. God also revealed himself. What is circumcision? He removes the concealment. That's what it says. Avram Yoshev al Petach. It says that Abraham sits on the entrance of hell. And he doesn't allow anyone who is circumcised to go there. Except one who has relations with a non-Jewish woman. Or lasso, that there used to be a thing that Jewish people in Greece also, that they used to appear naked in these Olympic Games. And so nobody would know they were Jewish. So they used to make an operation to pull over the foreskin over their skin, again, over this, so it wouldn't appear. So if a person does an operation so you won't recognize it as a person like that, Abraham can't save. Vayer alav Hashem, God appeared to him, the Balatorim. Remember, Balatorim is an expert at gematrias. This is the Sof tables. This is the end letters of Ot. Ot means a sign. I'm sorry, Ava. Ava. Ava means desire. Malamet Ava lishkon ba'oel shel Avram. That God, Vayer alav Hashem, that God wanted to dwell in the tent of Abraham. Vayer alav, God appeared to him. With it, if you add it up with the letters, the gematria comes out Zeh Kavod Mila. This one and the honor of the Mila Nigla love was revealed to him. It was a genius when it came to these the gematrias. You could look at it immediately and figure out. Okay, let's go further. HaChaim. HaChaim says, Vayera elav Hashem. Now, usually in the sentences it says Vayera Hashem el Avram. God, Vayera, appeared God to Abraham. That's what it should be. And here it doesn't even say Abraham's name. It just says, and it doesn't say God number two. Look, it says, instead of saying Vayera Hashem elav, that God that appeared God to him. That's usually the way it is. Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God spoke God to Moses. God is usually the number two, and then he's doing the speaking. And then third, it says who he's speaking to, but here it doesn't say. Here it puts Abraham number two, a love, and it doesn't even say Abraham. It says a love to him. And Yesh Ladat says we have to understand, why did the Torah change and put the one who is seeing before the one who is showing himself? Right? God was showing himself to Abraham. Right? That should be first. It should say that God, Vayera Hashem, that appeared God to him. But it says there appeared to him God. Why? It should have said Vayera Hashem alav. It should say that God appeared to him, not God. There appeared to him God. Also, we find in several places later on, it also says Vayera Hashem alav Avram, that God appeared to Abraham. Vayera Hashem, that God. So usually it always says the one who's appearing before the one who is appearing to. It should say Vayera Hashem. God is the one that's appearing. Elav, to God is appearing. He's the one that's receiving. Oh, and also we have to understand, why does it say to Avram in this prophecy? What exactly did God say? God just said, right? God appeared to him, and it doesn't say what God said to him. Rashi says he came to visit Abraham. How does Rashi know this? It doesn't say anything about coming and visiting a sick person. So it says like this. Listen to this, the HaChaim. There's a lot more that he says, but we'll just do the first one. Seems to me that the intention is like this. It's coming to tell you that God rested his Shekhinah, his presence on him. But Nasem recovered the Shekhinah, and then Abraham became what's called a vessel for the Shekhinah. The Tim says, so it comes out, She'omer Uzal, that the rabbis say, that the Avos, the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Merkava l'Shekhinah, that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were a vessel, they were a vehicle for God's presence. Right? Just like a television is a vehicle for television waves, and a radio for radio waves. And really, there's television and radio waves in the room all the time, but you can't see them unless you have the proper vehicle. Well, the same thing, God is everywhere, but you can't see him without the proper vehicle. The vehicle is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, or to be like them. Oh, that's what it says, Vayera alav, that God revealed his presence to them. And therefore, it says a love first. This is to tell us that God to him appeared. To tell us that God appeared to Abraham in his full force, directly to Abraham. We wouldn't understand this if it said that God appeared to him. It says God, vayera elav, that God to him appeared. Because if you would say that, put Hashem's name in between, then the name of God would divide between the revelation and the one who it's been revealed to. In other words, what's it want to say? God, vayera elav, that God directly appeared to him. And then afterwards it says, who was it that appeared? It wants to tell you that there was no interruption whatsoever between the essence of God and Avram. Vayera elav, directly to him. Therefore, we find that we never said, it never says anytime in any more of the prophecies that God spoke to Abraham, it never says vayera elav. It says, and it doesn't say that he appeared. It says vayomer Hashem, that God spoke. Why? Because God always was appearing to Abraham. God's essence and Abraham became one. Not always did God speak to him. So this is the first time that God's essence is appearing to Abraham after Abraham circumcises himself. Therefore, it says directly, and he appeared to him, Hashem, that appeared to Abraham, God. In other words, there was no separation between appearing and to him. One answer. Here's a nice answer. Here's the Safrono. That God appeared to Abraham in Elon Mamre. That's where Abraham was circumcised. And all of his household was also circumcised. It says that Abraham circumcised himself and his son Ishmael and everybody in his family. That's where God appeared to him in this covenant. Like it says, L'kol korte brit pinyan atem netzavim. Like it said before, La'avracha b'brit. So it comes out that Avram, that he was more prepared than any of them for this appearance of God. V'chein inyan v'yif gashehu Hashem shalom nir Hashem l'daber im Moshe of l'hofia shchinasoi l'kabel brit bano ka'omru beini u'beinechem l'dorotechem. That's why there's a custom to put a chair for the circumcision in the place. In other words, it's stressing here the place where it was that God appeared to Abraham. At first glance, it really wasn't so necessary, but he says, no, because this place was the place where Abraham circumcised himself first, and then after that he circumcised his whole family, so the place became special. So maybe that's why they put a chair to show that the circumcision is important, but the place is also important. Kli Ykar. The Kli Ykar says like this. Of course, you realize I'm skipping a lot of these commentaries. They're all very beautiful, but this is Reb Shlomo Milunchitz. The God appeared to him. It doesn't say the same question. It doesn't say, but God appeared to Abraham. A little bit of a different question. It doesn't say Abraham's name. It just says that he appeared to him. Why? Because Abraham's name and Abraham's essence are two different things. In fact, they're two opposites. The name of Abraham was because he was going to be the father of all mankind. This shows on that he was very big, very great. And the essence, that's the name of Abraham, but the essence of Abraham was that he was the most humble person of everyone. That shows on what it says, Anochi Afar Ve'efer. That's Abraham said later on. You'll see, I am dirt and dust. When Abraham is going to argue for Sodom V'Amorah, you'll see. In order that you shouldn't say that God appeared himself to Abraham because he was so great and he was so accomplished. Therefore, it doesn't say that Hashem appeared to Avraham. To tell you that not because Avram was so great and so successful and that he was the father of all nations, etc., that he was so promising that God appeared to him, but rather because God's appeared to Abraham because of Abraham's essence, that Abraham was very humble. Shafal Birach said. Therefore, the rabbis say God does not rest his presence except a person that is wise and powerful and rich and humble. Therefore, it says Vayira love b'shvil. Therefore, it says that God appeared to him. It doesn't even say his name, Abraham, because God's essence was appearing because of Abraham's humility and not because of any other thing that appears to. Beautiful. Let's take the last one over here. God's Canaan. It says that God appeared. This is all the Kli Ykar. Very beautiful explanations, but we're limited in time a little bit. So it says that God appeared to Abraham. There it is. Rashi says that Mamre gave him an advice for the circumcision. Says that that's a what type of advice did he give him? Kli Adam Chashuv, and a person that was so important and such a holy person like Avram, that God had given him 10 tests. Well, he didn't have 10 tests yet. This was like the seventh test. And below Shal Eitza, and he didn't, all the other tests that he didn't ask anybody for advice. All of a sudden here he's asking advice for the circumcision that God commanded him. Yesh Lomar, maybe we can say that God forbid to say that Abraham took advice if to follow God's orders or not. But he wanted to know, he's going to give several answers. Abraham wanted to know, should he do this bris milah that he was going to do advertised in secret and private, or advertised? Right nowadays, they make a circumcision, so they make a big party. But Abraham, this is the first time it had ever been done. He didn't know, should he make a big party out of it or not? Maybe a little bit embarrassing. Not only that, very painful. Well, Mamre said you have to do it in public, advertise it so that the whole world will see and people will circumcise themselves afterwards or become circumcised. That's what it says. Be'etzem hayom hazeh nimol Avram. Avram was, that's what it says, Be'etzem hayom hazeh, that Abraham circumcised himself in an advertised way in the middle of the day so that everybody could see. Devar acher, another explanation, that Abraham asked Mamre advice where he should make this circumcision. Where? God didn't exactly tell him. Maybe he should make it on his forehead, maybe. And Mamre said, you give the advice that you should circumcise yourself in the place where, with differences between a man and a woman. He molachim called zachar, from a place you can see the difference between a male and a female. Another explanation, when God commanded Abraham to circumcise himself and all the people in his house by honor of Ashkel, so Halach, he went to honor of Eshkol and Mamre. These are his three friends, to ask them what he should do with all the other people. With himself is no problem. He's going to circumcise himself. What about all of his servants and everybody? He had to circumcise them as well, and they didn't want to. They didn't want to do it. Below you do, and they didn't know what to reply. He went to honor of Eshkol, so he went to Mamre, who was his third friend, and he gave him the advice that first he should circumcise himself and then Yishmael. And then when everybody saw that Abraham did it, then they'll accept on themselves that they should also be circumcised. And so he did. And that day, Avram and Yishmael, they were circumcised first, Bahadar, and afterwards it says V'kol Anshe Beso, and after all the people in his household. And if you have a question, Mamre that gave him this advice, why didn't he circumcise himself in the end? Lo mal atzmo l'sof. It says, Nimel, it says that he was circumcised. That's what it says in the Agada. Okay, I have to see over there. Kachom Hayom, it says it was the time of eating, and it was the time of the fourth hour of the day, hottest time of the day, midday. And then that's the time when people eat. That's what Rav Papa said. And he was sitting in the entrance of his tent to take people in to give them food. Okay, let's just do one more over here. Abraham lifted up his eyes and he saw, and behold, 3 people were standing, and he ran, he saw them, again he saw them, and he ran to meet them. Rashi is going to say, what does it have to say he saw? It already says that he saw, and another time he saw. He ran to meet them from the entrance of his tent, and Vayishtachu Arza, and he bowed down to the ground. Let's see. Rashi, let's just do Rashi at this time. He said there were 3 angels, three men. You're going to see that they're angels, but 3 men. One of them was to tell Sarah that she was going to give birth. One of them was to destroy Sodom. And one of them was there to heal Avram. That one angel can't do 2 things. That's this whole entire parsha is mentioned. That's why it's always mentioned in plural. Yochlu, they ate, they spoke, they talked. But when it's the news was given to Sarah that she was going to give birth, it says, Vayomer, he said, next year I'm going to come back and you'll be born. When Sodom was turned over, it said, I cannot do anything. The angel said, I can't do anything unless outside of what God tells me. And Raphael, that healed Avram, he went afterward to save Lot. That's what it says, Vayikat Hotziam Oto, when Abraham destroyed the cities, when God destroyed the cities of Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah, as an angel saved him, that angel was one of the 3 angels. It was Raphael. The angels that were standing over him, like Olav. Okay. But Vayar, that he saw twice. It says he saw twice. Abraham lifted up his eyes and he saw, and 3 people standing above, and he saw these 3 people. He saw them twice. What did he do? Why does it say Vayar two times? The first one is simple. That he was speaking to God's presence, and he lifted up his eyes, and he saw. It was God's presence was there, and he lifted up his eyes, and he saw. Simple. The other one is Havana. He saw, and the other one is that he saw. He understood. He understood that they were standing in one place, and he understood that they didn't want to bother him. Nevertheless, that and even though that they knew that Abraham was coming to run toward them, nevertheless they stood in their place to honor him. Right? If they didn't want to pain him, so why didn't they move toward him? So first of all, they didn't want to come too close because they didn't want to arouse him when they saw him running. So now they didn't want to to move from their place. They were giving him honor. But so they were going to actually go to meet him, but he sped up and he met them first. And Baba Metzia, it says, Nitzavim alav vayoratz likrosam, in order kad chaziuhu dahave shari va'asar, that they were, when they saw that he was running toward them, as they separated, they tried to separate from him, right? When they saw that he was going to stand up and run to them. So they tried to get away from him. As Abraham stood up and he ran to meet them because he wanted the guests so desperately. He was so desperately wanted guests. Okay, so in other words, 2 times he lifted up. First of all, he saw them, and then he understood that these were potential guests, but they didn't want to trouble him, so he ran to meet them. Rashi says, what is it? From here we learn, where is it? It says, from here we learn that it's greater to accept guests, accepting guests, receiving guests is greater than talking to God. That's what Rashi says in another place. We'll learn about that, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Hope to see you tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning.